Hey, awesome. We are we are back.
Sweet, ready to go?
Let's do it.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Eternal Void, but with Jazz podcast. We're Michelle and Gabby, and today we
Hey,
will be speaking to prolific author and magical practitioner Amy Blackthorn.
Hi there, welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks
it's
for coming
always a
on.
pleasure.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
So, Amy Blackthorn is the award winning author of the bestsellers Blackthorn's Botanical Magic, Sacred Smoke, Blackthorn's Botanical Brews, Blackthorn's Protection Magic, and Blackthorn's Botanical Wellness. She has been described as an arcane horticulturalist for her lifelong work with magical plants and teaching. She incorporates her experiences in British traditional witchcraft with her horticulture studies. She has a certification in aromatherapy and is ordained through the Order of the Golden Griffin. Amy's company, Blackthorn's Botanicals, creates tea blends based on magical associations. She has appeared on HuffPost Live, Netflix Top 10 Secrets and Mysteries in an episode about supernatural abilities, and the AP Newswire. So, Amy, is there anything else that you would like to share about yourself and share with our audience?
Oh my goodness. My two most recent releases actually came out on at the same time. I had two books come out in the same week. It was a spicy week. That's what we'll call it. Um Social media spell book, 366 ways to get witchy on the web. And I had another Blackthorn's book of sacred plant magic. And I am super excited because both of those books had a very spectacular place in my lore. Because my ADHD is definitely uh, the hormone changes that I'm experiencing made it really hard. So what I did was I told myself I was procrastinating on one project by writing another project. So I was still being productive. So I wrote two books at the same time.
Wow.
Yes.
That is wow. Um,
I love that. It's like a little brain hack.
It's definitely a brain hack. I was really concerned that I wouldn't be able to get one done um by the time the deadline came, and I was really excited that I'm like, oh, I figured this. I didn't figure anything out. This was a meme. It was like, hey, do the thing, and I said, that is a brilliant idea. I'm going to give it a shot.
well, congrats. I mean, that is no small feat.
Yeah, that is
Um,
incredibly impressive. And I can't wait to pick your brain about all of it.
I'm really excited. The I just turned in the big edit for the next book, which comes out next August, and that is Blackthorn's Botanical Shadow Work, Healing Through the Dark with Plant Magic.
yes, that
Ooh.
is we just were talking. That's currently available for pre-order on
Yes.
bookshop.org. Yes, comes out August 3rd. You've been really busy, Amy. I just don't even know where to begin with that. But I would love to talk about shadow work. That's always been a big topic here for me, and I'm a big fan of exploring it as a concept from every direction possible. And I, be honest, I till I saw your book, I had never considered like the botanical aspect to it.
It didn't exist until I wrote it. It was really important to me that I've been fighting for a book on shadow work since 2020, and my publisher was like, it seems really niche, shadow work. I'm like, you're not a witch.
Yeah,
Let me help you understand and how important it's been to witches since the pandemic, and how uh, beneficial not only has it been to witches, but humans in general. Let's really understand how we can undertake shadow work, and being able to add in the idea of botanicals is really incredible for my mind. When I started telling people I was writing a book on shadow work, the first thing everyone said was, "Oh my God, I want to do shadow work. I know I should, but it's scary and I can't." And I said, "Okay, this is how we can make this accessible for people. This is how we can make it something that is, it's not as scary. How can I do that? I broke it down. Every chapter has the initial theme of that chapter. The second half of each chapter is journeys to go and meet plant spirits who are going to go with you to do that shadow work.
Oh my God, I'm pre-ordering a second copy now. That's amazing.
Thank you. So,
Yeah.
for example, if you're going through this dark night of the soul and you say, okay, this everything sucks. I need some help. I need let's figure this out. You can journey to the spirit of corpse flower, we'll say, and corpse flower can help you figure out what is taking so much of your time and energy and thought and life from you, and what needs to go. How do we get rid of this body of weight? How can we get you to the point where you're moving forward?
Oh
So
my
you're
gosh.
you're working out each of those things with your allies. So by the time you finish the book, you've got 50 new allies to call on and develop relationships with based on your previous experience, where now you have a bunch of allies who can help you work out these different things. And those allies, those spirits, can help you do everything that our magical tomes say that they can do, but they're a spirit that is not necessarily in a body, but it has the ability to offer those same protections or influences that the plant works with. So we're taking that embodied agency and we're taking it another step forward.
I'm
That
speechless.
is,
Just wow. Yeah. Go ahead, Gabby.
yeah, that is just phenomenal and, really exciting. I can't wait for this book to come out. I do want to ask though, before, we get too far ahead, I know shadow work is kind of like a hot topic right now, but it is sort of like a topic that is, a little shadowy, a little uncertain, like not everybody really knows, like when we say shadow work, like what is that? Like could we maybe take a moment to talk about like what is shadow work? Why should witches do it in the first place?
That is an amazing question, and it's one you're absolutely right. I take it for granted. Uh, it was one of my concerns when I started working on the actual work for it because I was worried that seeing shadow work on the cover of a book was going to take some people who were not understanding what shadow work is and think, oh, it's bad. It must be evil. Shadows, that's scary. No, we are taking steps to help our inner self really look at the pieces of ourself that's difficult or scary or hard or just plain painful. And we're bringing those pieces out crumb at a time so we can expose them to the light. We can incorporate those parts of ourselves into the whole of who we are rather than relegating them to a dusty corner of your attic locked in a small box. Trauma, when we lock it away, does not heal. It just gets bigger. It just gets dustier. It just gets untenable. So shadow work is the ability to open up those chests and look at what's in there and say, this is not a purple polka dot monster. This is a dust bunny from 1992.
True that. Amy, you always do this. You say something that just completely breaks my brain.
I love it. I would say I was sorry,
Yeah.
but that would be a lie.
Yeah, no, and see, that's part of the shadow, right? Like, don't apologize for things you don't need to apologize for. That's definitely some shadow-based behavior. So no, don't apologize. You got this. I just need to figure my brain out. Drink some more of my decaf coffee. Gabby, feel free to jump in at any time.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I just definitely don't want to overstep or talk over anybody. But yeah,
Mm-mm.
so yeah, to kind of go more into like the shadow, like I know you kind of touched on a little bit like what it is. So the shadow is kind of like the amalgamation of like I guess everything we ignore about ourselves or that we maybe feel shame about. Like is that more or less
Shame
like
is a huge thing that a lot of people don't get the opportunity, or really, they don't give themselves the opportunity to talk about this in a one-on-one. And I mean that very literally because there's only one person here to say, okay, these uh, these these things that I've had pop up in my past were really traumatic. How do I move forward dragging all this weight around? The answer is you don't uh, drag the weight around anymore. You're bustling through the airport and you have 6 bags and 3 coats and 2 bottles of water, and TSA says, "Hey, you can't have liquids, buddy." Oh, you know what? I'm going to drink my water. That's going to take some of that weight off. We're taking that water that you can't take through TSA and giving it a very lovely chug so you can say, "Okay, this is part of me. We're going to incorporate this. We're going to um, take the upper self, the middle person, and then the inner person, the ego, super ego, and the id, and we're trying to make one Team Amy in this example. It's not you fighting against the things that have happened to you. It's bringing that into the light so you can understand that this is part of you, but it's not the whole you. So rather than being a bunch of trauma responses in a trench coat, I'm more Amy shaped now.
That is trauma responses in a trench coat really sums it up. I'm borrowing that forever. I love it. Yeah, I'm reminded of that quote by Carl Jung that's often cited. It's I think it's maybe paraphrasing. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And that's really goes hand in hand walking down the street with the trauma responses in the trench coat picture, right?
Absolutely. Uh, when we talk about how it exists as a person, the the number and weight of the traumas that we've experienced can feel, it's not just untenable, it can feel like you're being buried alive with the number and amount of things that are happening all at once. My job as an author, as a witch, as a writer, as as a professional intuitive is to give you that hand up that says, "Hey, you're not drowning. I'm going to make sure that you are able to figure this out." But since I can't be in everyone's home at every time, that's how I'm able to bring this and write it down into a book. Just like I can't give every single person on planet Earth my protection magic classes. I want to make sure you make it home safe at night, so I wrote protection magic.
An amazing book, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely adore it.
Same.
Um,
I just want to be there. I want to be the person who can help you have faith in yourself to know that you're going to get home safely at night. And that home safely includes your inner self, who you are on the inside, not just your physical body. Um, Donating my time and expertise to queer studies, to queer groups, saying that's great, but I can only help as many people as can fit in a room at a time. At least
right.
with botanical shadow work, with protection magic, I can make sure that you have a little pocket Amy to keep with you at all times. A friend of mine jokes she needs her Amy Blackthorn when she rides the bus by herself. So she has her astral Amy Blackthorn to stand over her like a little protection ally, and her projection of that inner Amy keeps her safe on the bus. It's all about trying to make sure that you know that you can do this. I'm just here. I'm just your favorite backup dancer.
I absolutely adore it. Um, I confess I may have been guilty of some of that astral Amy Blackthorn stuff in the past as well. No shame.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. Um, but like, yeah, and kind of jumping off, like, I don't know, like the shadows still, like, it seems like a scary place to start, right? Until you really get into it and see like the progress that and the healing that can happen in those darker spaces. Do you think there's any common like mistakes that people make when first approaching shadow work as a practice for healing and self improvement?
I do, because we put so much pressure on ourselves to be good at things right away, or I don't want to do it at all. And
Yes.
with shadow work being a nebulous concept, it's not concrete. I can't go and buy a pair of scissors the way I go and buy some shadow work because it's a nebulous concept and we can't put our hands on it the way that we can physical items. People are like, okay, how do I know how to start? How do I know that I'm actually doing it right? A lot of people want that permission that says, okay, it's okay if you fail at this. It's okay if it's hard. It's okay if you feel like you're doing it wrong. You're still doing it. So if you are looking within yourself saying, I know that I'm supposed to be doing my shadow work, the number of people who actually know what that means is much smaller. They just know that they're supposed to. So in addressing their progress over time, how do you measure whether or not that's successful or not? Because you don't have tangible things. For example, we were talking before we hit record about filling tea orders in my tea shop. Like, okay, I start to get buried. I've got to take a minute. That's a physical thing. It's harder to measure the inexplicable, the things that are part of ourselves that aren't really there. So once we pull out these bits of shadow, bring them forward, we're integrating those parts of ourselves. How do we know if we're done? Well, we're never done. But when we first start, we get to the point where, like, okay, how do I measure my progress if I can't see it or feel it or measure it or quantify it in any way? And the best part is that as you're doing this work, your experiences get lighter and your luggage gets lighter without even really noticing it first. It's not until you get to the point where it's sort of like weight loss. I've always, not always. I'm a plus size person, and so when I started going to the gym last year, I was noticing a difference in my shape, but it was hard to quantify because I won't go near those scale things. No, we don't do scales. That's bad for my mental health. So how am I going to quantify my experience? Well, I feel stronger at this point than I did, we'll say, a year ago. I feel stronger mentally having done, shadow work for, we'll say, a year. I
Yeah.
feel stronger now than I did then. And that's enough. Enough that I can feel better about myself and about the amount of luggage I'm carrying around with me at the beginning of the book versus the end of the book. And that's enough. I was really worried that people would start botanical shadow work and say, this is really scary or hard. I can't do it. I'm out. And just put the book down and never pick it up again. And so I gamified it. I brought in more allies. I brought in a way through the woods. So the chapters are divided into sections for each element. So each element has its own theme and its own guide and its own nourishment. So you can take the baby steps and still knowing that no matter whether they're baby steps or big grown up witch steps, you're still moving forward. Just by having picked up the book and opened it, that's a step forward.
Yes. Yeah. Just yes. My brain is always. Amy, your work is absolutely amazing,
Thank
and
you.
yeah, I opening the book. I always feel like every time you're done speaking, I have like 20 questions trying to trip over each other and get out of my mouth.
Yes.
Yeah, I really like. Would it be fair to say, like with shadow work, it's like something that stuck with me from symposium I was at last year was somebody mentioned the space between trigger and reaction.
Hmm.
And I think, in my experience, it would be fair to say that the purpose of shadow work is to open up that space and to allow room for response.
Absolutely. Because the response that we jump to first, that trauma response, is the one that we built on purpose. So we're not saying that it's bad or evil. We're just saying that it's outlived its usefulness. That
Right? Yeah.
message was sent via telegram and it got here, 2 weeks too late, 10 years too late. we built those responses for a reason because they work.
Right. Yeah,
We're just
they
at the
saved you when you were a kid, but maybe you don't
yes.
need them now anymore.
So
But they're
all we're
still
doing,
there.
yes.
Oh, go ahead. All we're
Uh,
doing.
yeah, we're trying to lengthen that space out and giving you the opportunity to say, okay, those are the ways that I would have responded 10 years ago were valid, 20 years ago are valid, but they're not necessarily needed anymore. So I'm going to delete that extension because we don't need it anymore. We're just absorbing it back into the whole.
Yeah, deconstructing those like mental fortifications, I guess. Like you can do so much once you get like, I don't know, mixing analogies a little bit, like melting down that armor, right? You get the metal back and you can build it into other stuff. You can build it into, I don't know, whatever you want. And the point is you're getting that back. Okay, my analogies there just fell apart. But you know what? That's okay.
Something, something swords into plows.
Yeah, yeah, something like that. Yeah, I maybe I need to switch back to caffeinated coffee. We'll see what happens. Yeah, I took a class over the summer at the local college on public speaking, and I don't know, listening to myself now, I have no idea how I passed that class, but we'll figure it out later.
Oh, you're doing great. You're doing great.
I'm sure. I appreciate it. But yeah, let's see. Just looking over some of the material you provided here for us. Gabby, what's on your mind for this?
Yeah, yeah, I do want to say like something that I've really noticed and find very interesting about, your approach to shadow work is that it runs very counter to like sort of the capitalist mindset of like you must be productive, you must hit these specific goals in these specific ways, or it's like a success or failure situation, whereas
Absolutely.
it's the opposite. It's like it's sort of you are the one, and like not even just like your ego self, like your full self, you are the one who is in control of the process. You are the one who makes the decisions and decides like I don't want to follow these habits anymore. I don't want to keep perpetuating this cycle. I want to do something differently. It's not good or bad. It's just sort of it is, and being okay with that, because I think that's something, with sort of how a lot of us are programmed. It can be tricky to unlearn, all of that programming, but that's the beauty of shadow work because we realize like, oh, these beliefs don't come from me. They come from society. Society tells me I should be this way. When do I really want to be that way?
Probably not.
Yeah,
Probably not. No.
yeah. I really like what you said about ending cycles. Like, that was a big impetus for my own work is just like seeing like certain themes reoccur within my own life on like 7, 10, or like 15-year cycles and just being like, I have no idea what's behind this, but it seems like something that should be addressed. Let me go hang out with these witches while we're on this pandemic, right? And now we're here.
Yes. Looking at the way that we talk about shadow work as witches versus the way that greater society understands shadow work is really different. You get the what is it, the shadow work journal that's popped up on TikTok a lot. Oh, it's great. You should buy this. It's great. You do the shadow work. The point of doing it the way that I'm proposing in botanical shadow work is that it's not about buying the right tool. It's not about having the right thing. I wanted to make sure that people understood the inner work that they can do through journeying to get to understand those people, those spirits, those plant allies that we're looking to work with. Because at that point, once you realize that you don't need the physical plant material in front of you to work magic with it, then you're opening yourself up to plants that exist outside of your ecosystem, outside of your continent, and outside of your epic. You can develop relationships with plants that have not existed on planet Earth for thousands of years.
Okay, that opens up a million questions. So you're proposing in the book that you don't even need samples of the plants to work with.
Absolutely.
Oh, that is amazing. Can you give us kind of like like without reading us a chapter of the book, can you tell us a little bit about like how that works?
Absolutely. When we look at how we are developing relationships with plant spirits through our own experience, not only does it open up the understanding that we don't need these physical allies present, we can find a photo online of something that looks really fabulous and esoteric and looks like Triceratops should have been eating it and say, okay, what can this specific plant teach me? Because when you're looking at uh, manuals like Botanical Magic about plants, you're going to find the most common magical plants in those tomes, but you're not going to find the super fun esoteric stuff that exists, in the Jurassic era. You're going to find what we have available to us now. But if you can find a photo or even a name without a photo, you can invite that plant into your inner landscape and say, okay, what can we learn from each other? I'm looking at a picture on Google image search of Silphium. How can I develop a relationship with that? You concentrate on the image that you're provided, if you have one. If you just have the name, you're going to reach out to the spirit of that plant. The Latin binomial would be the phone number that we're calling. So, okay, I have Salvia rosemarinus, rosemary. Okay, I can call up rosemary and say, okay, I'm going to picture the plant of rosemary in front of me in that inner landscape. What does it look like? How does it smell? I We look at the internal visual acuity on a scale of from 0 to 5. So if you're at a 0, then we would consider that aphantasia. You have no ability to see inside your head when you close your eyes. It's just dark.
Yeah, my problem with that, and this is another conversation, but I'm either 0 or 5. And when it hits 5, I'm like, holy shit, because I
I'm a
never
5 all
know
the
what.
time.
Nice.
So I can pick up the apple, I can eat it, I can chew the apple, I can have that digestive experience without a physical apple present. But we have lots of people in our group, in our genre, who don't have the ability to take those same visuals that I get. So it's really important to me that all of the journey work that's outlined in Botanical Shadow Work make sure that I incorporate as many senses as possible.
Yes.
So if you're a 0, I want to make sure that you can uh, smell the flowers that we're working with, or that you can have the texture of the plant that you're touching. There's uh, so many senses that we're working with. It gives you the more options rather than just relying on visual acuity. I never want people with aphantasia or even visual differences to feel like their way of doing things is bad or wrong. That's not a thing.
Right.
I consulted with a number of friends who are on the visual spectrum of inner work. They have a different set numbers. I talked to one friend who was a 1, and her inner landscape looked like the screen from the Matrix, just zeros and ones going through a pattern, has a little bit of texture, and it's really neat to understand the way that she views her inner landscape. But I want to make sure that everyone understands that there's no wrong way to do this. I talk about the visual spectrum because I'm a visual learner. I
Right.
need to see something to do it. But these plants have been reaching out to form relationships with us the whole time. How does that look today? For example, there's a gentleman in 2020 out in the countryside near Libya walking around the mountains, and he found a plant. He said, this plant looks really familiar. I couldn't tell you what it was, though. I take some pictures. We're going to look it up, see what happens when I get home. And so they're looking and looking, and they cannot find what this plant is. You know, I it shouldn't be this hard to find if I'm really sure I've seen it somewhere before. It turns out that this plant, the reason he had seen it but he hadn't seen it was because it's on the money. Silphium was a plant found uh, in ancient Rome and ancient Greece, and it was such a potent plant. It was supposed to make sex better. It was supposed to, if you were pregnant and you didn't want to be, it would cure pregnancy. The amount of things that this plant offered were so many that we ate it into extinction. The very last
Oh my
known
gosh.
silphium plant was grilled and prepared and given to Nero on a golden plate. Okay, here you go. Eat this. That's the only one left. Knock yourself out. So this plant has been extinct for thousands of years. And we're getting to the point now where we're like, oh my goodness, how does this plant just appear on a mountainside 150 miles from the nearest, from the last known sighting thousands of years ago?
Right.
What in the world? So these plants are reaching out, they're coming back, and they're giving us ways in which we can work with them energetically, magically, and the like. We can, if you can invoke a deity, you can invoke or evoke, depending on the way you're looking at it, the way of these individual plants. You say, okay, well, I'm not in Libya with on the side of a mountain. How can I? You can look to your here in the U.S. You can look to your local hardware stores in the springtime. Say, oh,
Yes.
okay, you're going through the outdoor garden area at Home Depot. You look around and you find, oh, there's a whole patch of different fruits that I can make myself available to. You're going through the racks and you see something that looks just like a strawberry. Oh my goodness, it's green leaves, little frilly edges, three lobes. I'd know a strawberry anywhere. But you look at the tag and it's not a strawberry. Instead of a red fruit with white seeds, it's a white fruit with red seeds. And you think, there's genetic engineering, and no, this really beautiful, divine plant is called a pineberry. It is the predecessor to
Mm.
strawberries. So these seeds were found in a dig that was 40,000 years old. And they found a jar full of seeds and they said, hey, we'll see what happens if we try and germinate them. I think that's how you get zombies. But, I'm not in
Yeah, right.
charge. So they opened up the jar and they tried to germinate them, and they found this predecessor to the strawberry. It's
Oh my
white.
gosh.
It's white, so it tastes like pineapple, not strawberries.
Wow, I just looked this up. This is amazing.
I want some.
They're really neat.
Yeah.
They're a very firm fruit. It's very much the same texture. It's closer to the texture of pineapple than strawberries. They're very firm, and they have that beautiful little bit of sourness in the back of your jaw.
Mhm.
Pineapple.
Oh, that is so cool. And I love how you describe it. Like, I feel like that's like the perfect sneak peek for how you're going to describe things in your book.
Oh, yes. Emotive language is a really important communication tool that I personally have a lot of vested interest in. I want to make sure not only can people understand me as an author, but my one of my hobbies is perfume. So if I am able to experience a fragrance, how am I going to send that across the internet where there's no smell-o-vision? I am going to have to figure out how to engage all of my other senses so I can help someone else understand. For example, I had my friend Kat was over today and helping me in the tea shop. And she said, okay, there's this Morrigan tea. I work with the Morrigan. What does this smell like? She went to reach for the bag. I'm like, no, 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 just close your eyes. She's, okay. I'm watching you. Like, this better not be a trick. I said, no, close your eyes. I said, okay, you're standing on a hillside that is green and lush. Uh, but off in the distance, there has been a great battle. So you can smell the fires that people used to keep themselves warm. You can smell the open air grass that's been trampled down, and off to the side, just a little bit of ways, is an apple orchard that's in bloom. So you can smell the apple blossoms, you can smell the smoke of the fire, and you can smell that little bit of trampled grass in the background. That's what the Morrigan smells like. That's what the Morrigan tastes like.
That is so
Interesting.
cool. I love it. I'm obsessed.
Oh, yeah. I love it.
That is
Um,
so cool. Yeah. Like I've never really thought about like what different deities like smell or taste like, but you're right. Like that is such, like especially like smell, because I feel like it's so linked with memory and, how we understand things. And
Do you
yeah,
know do you know why smell is linked with memory so strongly?
it's kind of, I know it's something with the brain.
Yes. Yes, the way our brains are wired. You are I have a bottle of Oak Absolute. Take the lid off. I go to give it a smell, and you get a nice inhale, exhale. And what happens is the little molecules ping against a giant Plinko board in your brain. Boom, 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 boom. It falls down into a pocket, goes, oh my goodness, this is oak. But we didn't just jump to oak. These little molecules had to go through this map in your brain and say, okay, um, it's an office file box, and every single day that you have lived has its own piece of paper. So every day you get another piece of paper, you write on it all the things you've smelled, you put it in the top of the box on the next day. So if I had to dig to the very bottom of the box to the day I was born and go backwards, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, to find oak moss, our memories would not work at all. We'd have so much stuff to dig through, we wouldn't be able to get anywhere. We wouldn't get anything done. But if we go from the top down, the most recent backwards towards the past, you'll find the most recent time that you smelled Oak Absolute. What that does is it makes us go through memory to get to recognition. So we have to go through every bit of paper until we find Oak Moss Absolute written on that piece of paper, that day's piece of paper, until we get to Oak Moss. So it's a much more efficient way of organizing our memories. The neat thing about that, as we're talking about shadow work, when you have a traumatic link with a smell, you're not smelling the first time you smelled it, and you're not smelling that original trauma. You're smelling a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy.
right.
What that does for trauma, it allows us to overwrite those traumatic memories. So take something, a donkey kicked you in the shin in an orange grove when you were 6. So the smell of oranges makes you mad at the donkey. So what we're doing is you can take a nasal inhaler tube. They look like a chapstick vial. They've got a
Yeah.
little bit of cotton in them. You take the lid off and you give them a smell. You put it back in your pocket. So what we do is we put orange essential oil in that little nasal inhaler tube, put it in your pocket, and when you feel good, when you feel things are going well and you're not struggling, you pull it out, you have a little smell of orange. Okay. You start linking those happy brain chemicals with the orange. So it's overwriting the old traumatic memory association. So whether it was an Axe body spray or, a donkey kicked you in the shin with an orange, you can rewrite over that and take control of the shadows that are haunting you by putting that foot forward and saying, okay, I'm taking control of this. This is mine now.
Hell yeah.
I love that. Like that is just such like an empowering idea. Because I think sometimes like with trauma, like when you go through the trauma, it feels like it's something that's going to be with you forever. Like it feels like it's something like you're stuck with, like you can't escape it. But with this, it kind of shows you like you still have some control, some agency in how you heal from it and what you do. So you can't change what happened in the past, but you can influence what happens in the future.
You said a really important word that I want to make sure that our audience grabbed a hold of. One of the things that happens when we are experiencing trauma is one of the most common themes is someone has taken our agency away.
Yes.
So in reclaiming that agency, in whether it's reclaiming agency over a smell or a particular trigger, you can say, guess what? This is mine now. I'm keeping it. I'm taking it home. I'm going to mount that on the wall. But how we do that is by taking those steps and saying, this is what's important. This is how I'm going to get it done. And at this point, the chapter in Botanical Shadow Work is called aromatherapy breath work with a bonus. We're taking the idea of breath work, the square breathing or the circular breathing, depending on what you need, and saying, okay, how can we add? I'm a double Virgo. How can we make this more efficient? But we're taking those pieces and enacting that agency for ourselves, because that is one of the best and most important ways to take your power back, is to make sure that your agency is being respected.
Yeah. And I loved what you said there about taking the power back. That's really, really the core of it. Like with my own forays into the shadow realm and the shadow work, what comes up a lot of the times is traumas
Mm-hmm.
of when like boundaries were treated as if non-existent, or yeah, just like what you said, agency was nullified, was surrendered, was taken, stolen, and yeah, taking the power back. I love it.
That's my whole jam. Whether it's the Protection Magic book or Botanical Brews, it's all about agency is my most important thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of quiet on this one. I'm just thinking like I have a lot of dreams about power generators. Like it's like nobody wants to hear about that necessarily, but it also intersects and hits the nail right on the head with what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Um, Go ahead.
Oh, were you going to say something?
No, I thought somebody else said something and I stopped because anyway.
Oh, and just apologies if you hear any like background noise. There's a train going by right now. I live in an old house with radiators, so if you hear clanging, that's what it is.
The only thing I'm hearing right now is Milia's snoring at my feet.
Adorable.
Little
Y'all are
kitty
talking.
snores.
Oh my
Aww,
gosh.
so cute.
Her extra scritches for me. All right, I've got a question for you. Now that my brain is braining a little bit more, and Gabby wrote some awesome questions. What are some of the specific benefits of like working with like a plant ally for shadow work? Like, can we talk a little bit about how that looks with the shadow work realm? Like, what plant will help you with what specifically?
Absolutely. I'm actually gonna pull out my handy dandy little Rolodex, and we're just gonna pick a plant at random.
Okay, sounds great. Perfect.
Sweet.
Oh, jasmine. Oh, it's really fabulous because jasmine has not only is it it's a beautiful flower. People think of it as really delicate and perfumey and blousy. But aside from the beautiful fragrance, when we're talking about finding allies for shadow work, one of the benefits is you can or cannot, depending, you may not need to smell jasmine to do that work. Your brain chemistry isn't going to go through the same um, obstacle course that it would if you were working with the essential oil, and you're not going to get those exact same benefits mentally or physically. What you're going to get is the energy that that plant works with. So jasmine, for example, has a really lovely affinity with magic for happiness. So if you have an experience with jasmine and you're saying, "Okay, I'm having a really hard time finding my happy at the moment. There's a lot of life happening right now. can you work with me and help me find that happiness and that joy? Yes. Even if you don't have any physical jasmine with you, even if you're not as stocked up on essential oils as Miss Amy, that's okay. This these plants are looking for ways to help us and to benefit each other. This is a beneficial relationship. So you can ask Jasmine, "Hey, what is it I can offer you? I mean, you have magic of grace and harmony and imagination and purification, protection, relaxation. How do I even pick one thing to talk to you about?" Well, you don't
Yeah.
necessarily need just one thing. One of my favorite things that Jasmine does is it offers justice. Jasmine is a very strong proponent of justice magic. So I can diffuse a single drop of jasmine essential oil before I go to a protest. I can ask for the spirit of jasmine to protect me while I'm working for justice, while I'm marching for justice. That protective cloak of jasmine can go with you. In protection magic, we talk about creating a magical cloak that can go with you, an energetic cloak that can protect you out in the world. In this example, we can make that cloak out of jasmine flowers and know that our protection is jasmine scented, but it's justice powered. The jasmine is uncrossing. It helps quiet the noisy voices in your brain if you trouble with a lot of what do you call it? Inner. It's not. They're not outside voices. They're not exterior voices. They're old. For example, like your parents' negative voices come back and say, "Oh,
Right here.
you should be doing something else."
Yeah.
That those quiet voices that are inside of our brain giving us a hard time, Jasmine will very easily and very gently calm those voices so that you can go back to whatever it was you were doing.
I love it. Um, so what, so how does that work specifically? Like, let's say, I guess maybe you just answered the question and maybe I'm looking for like trying to overcomplicate things even perhaps a bit. So it's just as simple as like incorporating something from that plant into what you're trying to do for the day or what you're trying to accomplish and just kind of following the threads where they go from there, huh?
Absolutely. I start usually by building a relationship with that specific plant. If you're a lot of people are worried when I first came out with botanical magic, people said, "Oh, I can't be a green witch. I kill every plant I come in contact with." And I said, "My love, that's not how that works. You could never kill as many plants as I have killed. That's just how that works." In horticulture, especially, we spend so much time developing relationships with these plants and learning how they work. Some of them are going to die, and
Yeah,
that it's soul crushing sometimes. But you really learn from your mistakes. You learn what those plants need, and that's okay. Those plants are coming back around. I like to use the example of peppermint. So I we have a we have a thing. I've had a long day, and I get to the end of my day and say, I'm feeling a little sore. I was in the T mines all day. I got a podcast interview. I got a thing. How do I put that all down at the end of the day? Oh, I'm going to make a mug of peppermint tea. So I go in the kitchen. I get my infuser out. I fill it with all the peppermint that I want. I fill it with hot water. It starts to infuse. I sit the mug on top of my mug. It filters all the leaves out. I go and sit in the living room with Millie and I drink my peppermint tea. I compost the leaves. My tea is now gone. I put the mug in the sink. Where is peppermint? I cannot drink enough peppermint tea as one person to damage the spirit of peppermint because as long as there is one person on planet Earth that can identify mint, can smell mint, enjoys mint candy, can identify the plant, or even identify the idea of peppermint, the spirit of peppermint will endure. So by taking the mug of tea out of it, we're saying, okay, I recognize what peppermint is. I recognize what peppermint does. The other example for this, my niece Emily came to me when she was about 8, and she sat me down the way only an 8-year-old can do, and she said, "Okay, Aunt Amy, I have a question." We've all been there. Uh, she says, "I'm going to ask you because I know you won't lie to me." Oh my God, what are you doing to me, kid? So she says, "Okay, is Santa Claus real?"
Oh no.
And I said, "Yes, absolutely,
Oh yes.
but probably not the way you think." Because she knows I won't lie to her, so I'm not gonna. I said, "We have the idea, even if Saint Nicholas didn't exist in the, what was it, the 14th century, early 15th, creating the mythos around Saint Nicholas, even if it was just the guy in the red suit and created by the Coca-Cola company,
Right.
enough people believe in Santa all over the world, and all in the same time period, around the same day, the same uh, we have the same pictures of him, a guy in a red suit. He's got, boots, and he's got reindeer, and he brings toys. All of those little details that we filter into the experience of Santa. We've now built a thought form of Santa. So we thought Santa into existence, even if Santa didn't already exist, which, we know that St. Nicholas, it did exist. Uh,
Right.
each one of those things, every time one person puts a little bit of belief in the bank account of Santa Claus, he's able to spend that coin by existing. The same way we do for gods, the same way we do for spirits, the same way we do for the group mind of a coven. Every single
Right.
one has its own thought form. So the thought form of Santa Claus will continue to exist until the very last person stops believing.
Exactly.
I love that. Like it kind of reminds me of Peter Pan, all of that sort of like
Clap
whenever
if you
you say
believe.
yes, yes, like as long as you believe in the fairies, like they exist. And it's only when you say there's no such thing as fairies that they unfortunately die.
Absolutely. And so belief is a lot like that. No matter if you're talking about gods or spirits or fairies or plant allies. When people stopped believing in the magic of Silphium, it started to go away. We ate it into existence. But we
Hmm.
now are getting to the point where people are looking for the past, and people are finding that past around them every day. Our gentleman who found it said, "Oh, I know this. Well, it was so important to the culture and the civilization, they put it on their dollars, the
Yeah.
lira." It was so important. It was so beautiful and so impactful. It went where the Ben Franklin goes. Okay. Enough people are seeing Ben Franklin on $100 bill. They know who Ben Franklin is. They can pick his face out. Will Ben Franklin stop existing when we stop remembering who Ben Franklin is?
Yeah, like this is so fascinating because it brings to mind, all these themes of like death and rebirth and kind of like how like there really never is like a true end. Because
Exactly.
like you said, like even though with the Silphium, like it was lost for so long, you know, somehow it's back again.
So there's a saying that we die 2 times. That, we die when our physical body expires, and the second death is when the last person forgets your name.
Right.
So what does that mean for Ayan Nasir and his cruddy copper fitting joints? The copper that he was providing every couple hundred years, somebody says, what did you do? What is this copper? This copper is substandard. What are you doing? So he's just gotta pop back up. Oh, was that me, or you were calling me? Oh, it's just the world's oldest complaint.
I love it. I just love to imagine him like in the underworld. Like whenever we talk about him, he just like perks up. Oh man.
Yes. So close.
Sweet. Do we want to maybe segue into some of the other questions that we have for Amy? Maybe
That's what
like,
that's what I was just thinking. Which question are you looking at, Gabby? I am I've thrown a couple Amy's direction.
see. Yeah, I guess, we've been kind of talking about, plants for a little bit. So like yeah, let's kind of like maybe switch it up and maybe move on to social media, which might seem like a hard segue, but I think with like the shadow work theme, I sometimes feel like, with social media, with the internet, it kind of makes us think a little bit more about like our identity, like who we are, and kind of what we are putting out there. So one question that Amy provided for us was, how do you see secrecy in the craft with social media? Yeah.
So in traditional witchcraft, we talk about the witch's pyramid: to know, to will, to dare, and to keep silent. So the idea of this secrecy and the idea of keeping silent flies in the face of everything that social media is. So it's
Mhm.
very interesting to get into these theoretical and philosophical discussions about how and why is secrecy important, and how and why do we make sure that those two can live simultaneously, can live in harmony, so to speak. I really love it because when you look at the idea of what a spell is, you take parking space. I got a parking ticket and I need to cover the fine for my parking ticket because I didn't budget for a parking ticket. So the minute you decide that you want to write a spell, that's when the spell begins working. We've opened up a checking account and we're gonna start putting money in that checking account. And we'll spend it by enacting this spell. So all the time you spend researching your magical components, all the time you spend researching the opportunity and the objects that you might use in that spell, all of that time, effort, and energy goes into this theoretical banking account to spend to make that spell work. I'm putting together supplies. I'm running over to the witchy store in town to make sure that I have enough basil. Each part of that goes into that checking account. So how much more would you have in that checking account if let's say Instagram had a chance to put deposits into that account? So what we're offering might be a video of a candle, but what we're harvesting in those likes is the little bits of energy that people are putting into that specific image. So it's allowing the people of Instagram or TikTok or whatever your individual app that you're working with is to put some money into that checking account. So every time they click like, they're putting a little bit more of that energy of themselves and their attention, which is where we harvest magic energy from. That attention is putting energy into the spell of my parking space fund. So we can present the opportunity for people to be involved in our magical process. You can post a picture of a candle burning, for example, uh, and every time they're going to hit that like, they're lending some energy to it, but they don't necessarily know that that's what's happening. First of all, and second of all, it's very interesting to figure out how those people, whether they're interested or not in partaking in that working that you're doing. If they just saw a candle and they scrolled on past, okay, that energy is not for them, and that's okay. So we don't necessarily need to be explicit in what our posting is about to be able to harvest some of that energy that's being donated. It's not, we're not stealing it, it's being donated through the attention of the person who's scrolling. So the secrecy as a part of that magical formula is remains intact. Even if you're saying, okay, I definitely need some, I need cash for a parking space ticket. Guess what? You've now explained to the people what you're doing. Um, but the secrecy in the craft isn't necessarily something that people have a tendency to think secrets mean bad, and it's not the case. Not always the case, I will say. By bringing and keeping a little bit of something for yourself, you have the option to say, okay, well, if this was a love spell, for example, love spells are very contentious in community, and you say, okay, well, I'm not interested in hurting anyone's free will. I'm not interested in that. I want to draw the person who is right for me to me. So I'm going to leave that up to the deities. I'm going to leave that up to the gods. If I post that on the Fache book, people will see it and they may say, oh, okay, well, I think that that's wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
Everyone's entitled to their thoughts and feelings on the subject. But what we're doing is saying, okay, you're opening yourself up to the conversation at least. So if you are using that love spell example, saying, okay, I'm divorced, me, Amy, I'm divorced. And I say, okay, I think it's time for a partner. I open it up to the universe by posting it online. It could be that your best friend Chrissy sees your post and says, oh, my cousin Doug, it would be perfect for Amy. That attention could impart some energy towards that aim because she loves me and she wants me to have the best of things and she feels like she knows what's best for me. So she can, intentionally or not, add some energy to that. So by keeping it a little bit more vague, we're keeping a little bit something for ourselves, but they're still able to lend that energy without necessarily affecting the outcome. So I can understand that there's a person out there that's right for who I am right this minute, today. Is it Doug? Probably not. He's a little creepy. I don't know. This is a theoretical Doug. This Doug doesn't actually exist.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody named Doug saying, "Is she talking about?" No, I promise. But what we're doing is we understand that the influence of others on our magic. That's where the secrecy comes in. Because it's not necessarily that there's anything bad or hinky or suspicious happening. It's just that even if someone has our best interest at heart and they love us with all of their whole being, they may not necessarily understand what actually is best for us. So that little bit of secrecy keeps that a little close to the vest. Keeps it so you're saying, okay, this is definitely something I'm working on for myself. So if someone wants to lend some attention, some aid to this single burning candle, that's great.
Yeah.
If they're not comfortable, if their heart is like, oh, this feels hinky, they pass it by. That's fine. That's great. But by sharing this idea with the people who follow you on social media, they may want to lend some time, attention, or energy to the things that you feel are best. It's all about our own judgment and that feeling that you get inside rather than the concern from the outside.
Right. Okay. Yeah, no, I can pick up what you're putting down with that. And then, kind of we can circle that back around with the shadow work. It's like why the shadow work's important because getting in touch with yourself and knowing that feeling on the inside versus what are you picking up from the outside that you've been carrying with you will really help you with the work that you're doing in other directions.
Absolutely.
Um, that is just,
Yeah.
that is, go ahead.
No, you go. You go.
Yeah, I was just going to say that is amazing, Amy. And I really love the way that you explain that. I think maybe you have like one last question. And yeah, I was thinking, and we can keep going. There's certainly no hurry, but Like, so you were on this show 3 years ago, and since then, it seems like you've written at least two books, if not like four or five in the pipeline. You've got a lot of things in the pipeline coming down and stuff that you've accomplished since then. Like, what are you looking forward to the most, or what are you excited about?
I have when people say prolific, like it feels like they're talking about someone else. And I'm just hanging out in my office, yelling at the walls until a book falls out. So I'm really excited that I have the opportunity to look through a lot of different things. Those of you who aren't familiar, the nonfiction, especially book space, is formed built on proposals. So you have to write a proposal to whoever you're looking to create this work for, saying, I would like to write a book on shadow work. I want it to be 350 pages and it should take me 6 months to write. You put all that stuff together in a proposal, and they're usually in the neighborhood of 40 or 50 pages. So right now, I am working on proposals for two books and two decks.
Wow.
I am super excited. We'll see what winds up happening first. I'm hoping one of the decks, because it's not just the writing that goes into it. I love the world building that happens for each Oracle deck. We are the difference between tarot and Oracle is, of course, it's a very vast difference, but the heart of it is the structure. And so, what does the structure look like for each individual deck? So this one there could be a botanical deck. Let's see. I'm just reaching up into my pile of decks to review, and I see the Visionary Woman Tarot by Christine Gorman with a forward by Benabal Wynn.
Nice.
My editor said, "Oh my God, you have to have this. You have to try it." Um, she said you might recognize some people in this deck. I'm like, okay. So you turn over the Visionary Woman Tarot, and the first face you see is Rachel Pollack. She is the
Oh,
world
wow.
card.
Wow.
This makes me so happy. If you did not have the opportunity to meet Rachel while she was alive, she's just one of the most incredible humans that ever lived. Period. Just period. Um, so it's really lovely to get to understand the world building that goes into each and every deck. Uh, I get asked a lot how many decks I have, and I think the right number of decks is n plus one, with n being the number that you currently have. The cards that we have available to us are they're I'm having Shakespeare quotes in my head about, dreamt of in mere philosophy, Horatio. The oracle decks that I'm proposing, one of which is a botanical oracle. And I'm hoping that that proposal goes really well, just because I really love the plant work that I've been able to do. But I'm really lucky that I have the opportunity to write pretty much anything I want, because um, I've gotten to the point where my understanding of my own writing process is what props up the individual author. So if this is something that's going to benefit my brain space, go for it. Let's see what happens. Even if that thing never sees the light of day, even if a publisher's like, this isn't the vibe that we were looking for, we'll try and make it. We'll try again later.
Yeah.
The process is what really gets the emotional battery going. Once I've
Right.
filled up on art, it's got to come out somewhere. So whether that's a fiction book or a nonfiction book or an oracle deck, or I'm just creating so that the next thing in my emotional bank can be created. So I write a poem today so I can write a book tomorrow. I paint a painting today so an oracle deck can happen tomorrow. Even if some of
Love
these
it.
things never are published, it's the writing is the point, not the publishing. The
I
publishing is
love it.
a beautiful, beautiful side effect of the part of my brain that needs to create. Um, Laura K. Hamilton. Somebody asked Laura K. Hamilton about, do you have any advice for writers? She's a best-selling author, and I just love everything she writes. And she said, you can't encourage a writer. Writers write. Like that's just it. I'm writing because this needs to be outside of my brain. I'm just lucky enough that I have people who are interested in hearing what is inside my brain.
Hell yeah, that's awesome. I
Yay.
can't
And we're
wait.
so
Yeah, go ahead.
no, sorry, yeah, I just wanted to say, yeah, we're so grateful that, you do decide to share, all the awesome ideas that you have in your brain, because I think we all benefit from it for sure.
I just that when people say, "How do you come up with your ideas?" Most of them are I dream about it and then it needs to exist. Even if that means it's botanical magic. Um, for example, in botanical magic, I was doing one plant a day, going through the alphabet and just working with that one plant for that day and moving on to the next. Jasmine refused, just flat, was like, I'm not done. I had to go. I had all the pages I was going to do that day. And I went to sleep and I woke up the next morning around 3 o'clock in the morning, set bolt upright. I had had a dream about justice magic and Jasmine. And so I wound up writing a whole new section
Wow.
on justice magic with Jasmine because I had dreamed it. So it needs to be out there. And so I'm just putting it down and see what happens.
I completely feel that process and I'm 100% with you on that. Yeah. I'd love to do an episode on dreams sometime. So much power there. Oh my gosh. Um, Gabby, was there anything else you wanted to ask Amy?
Uh, yeah, I think we pretty much covered everything. Like, Amy, you're fantastic to talk to, and, just
Yes.
such a great communicator.
Oh my
Half
goodness,
the
thank you.
times, yeah, you're welcome. Like, half the times, like, I'd have a question and then you would just answer it before I'd even have to ask it. And it's like,
Yes.
beautiful. I love this. Like,
Psychics.
fantastic. Yes. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, this was just a really great chat. And I loved hearing a little bit about, your writing process, because I feel like even though writing is different from magic, like, I feel like the philosophy underlying it is very similar. And yeah, I think it's cool to look at, magical practitioners who are also artists in other ways, because it all just blends together. It all creates just this one beautiful whole. And I love it.
That's a great point because when I finished Botanical Magic, I went back to my photography for a little bit, just again, fill up my repertoire of beautiful things. And I wound up with an art show right after Botanical Magic came out from some art that I was doing at this. So yeah, that getting the opportunity to have multiple mediums to express yourself is priceless.
Yay.
Uh, Absolutely. Now, one thing at the end of each episode of the pod, what we're going to be doing, or yeah, we'd like to take a moment to give a shout out to a mutual aid group, cause, or charity that we think should be on the listener's radar for support. Now, Amy, you've picked one out for today's episode. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Oh my goodness, yes. World Central Kitchen. Growing up poor and occasionally homeless, food insecurity is where my trench coat lives. Hanging on
Yes.
the doorknob of food insecurity. So World Central Kitchen, especially here in the US, we the experience that a lot of people that are very close to my heart had with Hurricane Helene, they were able to come into Asheville and provide food and make sure water was getting through, and they were able to help thousands of people just with the local aid organizations who were available, who were in on the ground before World Central Kitchen got there. And it's incredible to watch how much not just food that they're able to bring, but the how what am I trying to say, the togetherness and the incredible faith that they restore in people just by showing up. I want to make sure that people understand that World Central Kitchen is going to all of those places along the same lines of, you know, Médicos Sin Frontieres, Doctors Without Borders,
Mhm.
does. They go to the places and make sure that the people who are in need are being helped. Uh, it's not a top heavy bureaucracy. They're getting in, they're getting their hands dirty, making sure that people have what they need, and then moving on to the next disaster.
Most excellent. I love it. Thank you so much for the shout out. And where can we find your work?
You
Where can
can
we
check
find
out
you?
my the first 30 pages of most of my books on amyblackthorn.com. It'll take you some links to different things like my podcast. You can there's an audio listener you can pop up right there. You can check out my tea shop at blackthornsbotanicals.com, and you can benefit from some of my individual words by booking an appointment with me at amyblackthorn.as.me, Amy Blackthorn as me for my scheduler. If you'd like a reading, if you'd like I do security consulting, and if you'd like to book an appearance, local bookstores and things like that, you can also book consultations there.
Awesome. Definitely recommend the readings as someone who's had one. Very, very cool stuff there. Well, Amy, thank you so much for coming on the show. We always love having you, and we wish you all the success moving forward.
Thank you so
And
much.
oh, thank you. And then thank you all for tuning in to The Eternal Boy, but with Jazz. And our tune in next week. We should be talking with our friend Jonathan Seal about Twin Peaks and possibly music. So thank you all so much. Have a great day. Hey everyone, it's Michelle here. Thanks for checking out our first episode back with Amy Blackthorn. We had a blast in this chat. Right after we recorded, we heard from Jonathan that we'll be rescheduling our chat with him due to a scheduling conflict. Don't worry though, it's still on its way. In the meantime, we have a lot of exciting guests and talks planned. Be sure to stick around, new episodes will be out regularly. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. We also invite you to help support the podcast via the Ko-Fi link in the show notes. Thank you all so much, and we will talk to you soon.